Santorum has stamina.
They don't like their choices, but there's no appetite among Republicans for a brokered convention.
And Americans rate recent presidents. I'm Frank Newport, Gallup editor-in-chief.
I'm Susan Page, Washington bureau chief for USA Today.
And this is Election Matters. Well, Susan, another week has gone by, and we thought maybe Rick Santorum, who came up after winning in Minnesota, Colorado, and Missouri, would start to come back down again. But lo and behold, largest lead to date in our Gallup tracking. He's ahead by 10 points over Mitt Romney. No signs yet that his lead, the latest Republican to lead, is abating. Remarkable.
It is remarkable. And he benefited from the fall of Gingrich, so some of Newt Gingrich's support went to him. And Newt Gingrich continues to fail to get much traction. He's at 13%. That's the lowest since December 1st. It's been pretty steady there, down in those low teens.
And we looked at it, when we started tracking December 1st, it was Gingrich, then Romney, then Gingrich, then Romney, and now Santorum. So that's 4 lead changes, and now the 5th person to be ahead since we started tracking December 1st. Isn't that remarkable?
And a sign, I think, that we shouldn't be too confident that things might not change again.
Absolutely. And Santorum coming off his victories, of course, in the 3 states that we talked about there. The next thing coming up will be a debate on Wednesday night. Things, they affect the results, don't they? And then, of course, the big 2 primaries of Michigan, where you were reporting last week, and in Arizona.
There's just a couple things that can really affect the dynamic of this contest, I think. The debate is one, and it's the only debate that's now scheduled. It might prove to be the last one.
It's in Arizona,
of the
right?
primary scene. It's in Arizona, just outside of Phoenix. Ads affect it. We know the negative ads that these super PACs have funded have affected the race in the past. Gaffes can have an effect. And results. We found results now have maybe replaced debates as the thing that's the big driver of this contest.
And so that's why we'll wait for next Tuesday. Now, we did ask people in our poll about who they thought would win. First of all, we said, what about Romney? How likely is it he will win? And when you look at those results, it's not a certainty on the part of either all adults or Republicans that he's going to win, right?
Well, not a certainty that he's going to win the presidency, you mean, but the nomination, a lot of likelihood, I think, among Republicans that he'll be the
But we
the
had
nominee.
a very likely up at the top, and we didn't get the huge number saying very likely.
But you still have 85% overall saying very or somewhat likely that he'll be the nominee. Just 13% say he's probably not going to be the nominee. That strikes me as being pretty good for a guy who's lost the last 3 contests and is now in the fight of his life in his home state of Michigan.
All right, well, that's kind of like the glass empty or half full, good interpretation. We also asked about Barack Obama. How certain is it that he will win the presidency? And we said, is it certain he'll win? Is it certain the GOP candidate will win, whoever he may be, or does it depend on the nominee? And again, well less than half said it's certain that Obama would win, or certain that the GOP nominee would win.
Yeah, although Democrats are pretty sure that
Well,
Obama will win. 2 out of 3 Democrats say he'll win. It's interesting, a third of Americans say that it depends on who the Republicans choose as their nominee, and especially among Republicans. Republicans especially believe that their choice of a nominee will make a difference when it comes to who will win in November.
And speaking of their choice of a nominee, Susan, a lot of talk about Tampa. Beautiful city, Tampa Bay, right? But more than that, that's where the Republicans are going to have their convention. And there's talk now of a brokered, you were telling us a little earlier, that may not be the best word, right? What would be the right word to use?
Well, maybe contested.
Contested convention.
A brokered convention, the old style brokered convention, was at a time when we had brokers who could get in a smoke-filled room and make decisions.
Smoking their cigars.
Exactly. That's not really the scenario I think we have here. But we could have a convention where no candidate comes in with enough delegates to mathematically clinch the nomination. And then you might well see deals being made, negotiations, or even somebody coming in out of the blue, not one of the 4 candidates now running.
Like a Jeb Bush.
Bush.
However, as you wrote very, very brilliantly on the USA Today website, look at the data, we asked Republicans or what they thought about the idea, and it was, we don't want such a convention.
Almost 2 to 1 said, we don't want to have a convention where they end up choosing some person we haven't had a chance to judge.
So they really want, the Republicans say, we would like to get the nominees settled among the 4, right? Isn't that how we wrote the question, among the 4 that are out there running?
That's right. And interestingly, 57% of the Republicans said they didn't think this extended battle was hurting the party. It's fine with them to see this roller coaster go on for a while.
And it's great for journalists.
It's good for us.
That's right.
Not
Great
bad for
ratings.
pollsters either.
Yeah, that's great. We love it. Great for the people who put on the debates and all that. Now, another matter which I thought was quite interesting was expectations. that is of who would have the best chance of beating Obama, and we look just at Republicans here, although we ask everybody that, and Romney wins going away. Like 58% of Republicans say he has the best chance of beating Obama, overwhelmingly over Santorum. And yet, as we talked about, Santorum's leading among those same Republicans. So you've got a lot of Republicans who are saying, my head tells me Romney's the best candidate, but when a pollster says, who do you support? My heart tells me to say Rick Santorum.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, among the people, Republicans who are satisfied with the field, they divide about evenly between Santorum and Romney. But if among Republicans, 55% of Republicans say they wish there was somebody else running. Among those people, they split predominantly for Santorum. So in that way, Rick Santorum is the beneficiary of dissatisfaction with the field. And there are some Republicans who are supporting him, not so much because they support him, but because they're unhappy with the field that they've got.
Even though a lot of these Republicans say, you know, rationally probably Romney would be the best candidate. But at this point, they just can't come to say, as we've seen all along, it was Herman Cain and Newt Gingrich and now Rick Santorum. They want somebody else, it looks like. We'll see what happens in Michigan. You know, we talked about the presidents at the beginning of this. Of course, we're talking about who's going to be the president for the next 4 years. But we recently asked Americans to look back at modern presidents from Nixon on up through Obama and rate them.
You know,
who do you think came out on top?
Well, I saw who came out on top.
Yeah.
But you know, Reagan came out on top, Ronald Reagan, but Bill Clinton just behind. So a bipartisan top of the line there. And the next choices are dropped quite a bit. It's clear that Americans now rate those two presidents as the most highly, and no surprise, I think, who came out dead last.
Yeah, that was Richard Nixon. Of course, that's where we started. But right above him, at least by one of the measures, was George W. Bush, which is interesting because Bush, while he was president, kept saying to interviewers, along with Dick Cheney, don't judge me now, it'll be history who judges our presidency. Well, what's it been? Over 3 years, and now people are saying, at least right now, giving him pretty bad ratings.
Yeah, he's
so
still
we'll
pretty
see where
low.
it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Reagan, of course, has been venerated by the Republicans so much. They talk about him as, you know, the person they really look back to, and maybe that's what's coming through in the data on Reagan. Republicans really like Ronald Reagan, but when you put it all together, he's the highest rated modern president since Nixon.
And you know, he's the only modern president who gets cited a lot on the campaign trail. For instance, Bill Clinton's not talked about a lot by Obama, who of course ran for the nomination against his wife, Hillary Clinton. And among the Republicans, you almost never hear them talk about George W. Bush, but every day you hear Rick Santorum and Mitt Romney and the others talk about their allegiance to Ronald Reagan.
Well, we'll look forward to talking next week. We'll see what happens in the debate in Mesa, and we'll be anticipating the voting on Tuesday. What's that, the 28th?
The 28th.
Of February.
That's
I'm
right.
Frank Newport, Gallup Editor-in-Chief.
I'm Susan Page, Washington Bureau Chief for USA Today.
And this is Election Matters.